Week marked International Firefighters Day. That was a day that was used to reflect on the sacrifices made by firefighters. Observed in parts of the world with fire siren sounds for 30 seconds, followed by a minute's silence in memory of and respect for all firefighters who have been lost in the line of duty. Gauteng Emergency Services will next week now honor South African responders in a ceremony. Let's speak now to spokesperson for Gauteng MEC for Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Theo Nkonki. Mr. Nkonki, appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us then this morning. Let's just talk about the significance then of this day, International Firefighters Day, reflecting then on the lives of those who have continued to share their lives for us in emergency situations.
A very good morning to you, Arabile, and a very good morning to your viewers as well. And thanks so much for making time for us to talk about such an important topic. As you know, Arabile, this day, we started observing it as of the year 1999. Obviously, this follows the deaths of 5 firefighters in Australia in 1998, December. Since then, across the globe, we pause on the 4th of May to celebrate and recognize firefighters for the work that they do. As you know, they put their lives in great danger for the greater good of all of us who are in Gauteng and across our municipalities. So this event that we are marking on Friday is really about recognizing the work that they do and the dangers that they have to face in carrying out their duties. And we really appreciate that. And so many communities wouldn't be what they are if we didn't have that particular role that is being played by firefighters across the province. If they were not there, many communities would be vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And you know, fires and disasters are not issues that you can plan for, are not issues that you will expect, but sometimes at great danger to themselves. They put their lives and on the line and assist communities. So we want to appreciate them and take a moment to just, bow our heads to those who have lost their lives in the line of duty, but also recognize those who are still putting their lives at risk for the greater cause of our communities.
Yeah, won't you just share with us just the event itself then? Will this include family members of those past and present, of course, then obviously in honor of all of this and perhaps who may be in attendance?
So maybe let me start by just explaining that the event is hosted by the Provincial Disaster Management Center, which is in Midrand. And as you know, our role as COCTA is really to provide support and coordinate all our emergency services across the provinces. But the role of firefighting or the role of emergency services really lies with the municipalities. So what we are doing is that we have invited various firefighters from various municipalities, more specifically the city of Johannesburg. We will recognize those who have fallen through certain symbolisms that we will then observe on the day. But suffice to say that those who would have passed on in recent years and previous years would be recognized, and their families as well would be recognized.
Yeah, the significance of a day like this, though, one would say, is greatly recognized by the amount of support continuously given to EMS staff as well, particularly firefighters, in a time when funding had been very askewed. The 31 fire stations in Johannesburg certainly continue to struggle to receive funding and having sufficient staff. How do we continue to support?
So first and foremost, we need to realize and recognize the fact that obviously resources would never be enough, especially in our space where we have a huge influx of people every year. So you find that these colleagues have to, support more and more families and communities every year. So as much as funding is not enough, but there are interventions that are being made. For instance, in Mfuleni just last week, we, as the Provincial Disaster Management Center, we handed over 2 fire engines and other fire fighting equipment. That's the role that we as COCTA continue to play in making sure that we support as much as the resources are quite limited. but our role is to continue to support. So we continuously support all municipalities through their different challenges. For instance, the city of Mfuleni, for instance, we all know their challenges. So we are with them and we are working with them. So through the intergovernmental relations approach, we make sure that we keep in touch with the municipalities. For instance, we are always, week in and week out, we are in contact with municipalities trying to resolve the sustainability questions within the municipalities. So that turnaround of municipalities is something that is not an event, but it is something that we are working so hard together with the municipalities as well as national government to resolve, because you are right, the resources are very limited, and those resources that we have, then it becomes very important that we make sure that we safeguard those resources and we use them for purposes that they're meant for.
Theo, do you think that it is actually a financial issue, or is it a training issue with the number of lives that also get lost? Is it a recruitment issue at play here as well? Perhaps not enough people wanting to perhaps be or fit into the criteria of being firefighters and emergency medical staff. What do you think it is?
So from the perspective of the Disaster Management Center, the Provincial Disaster Management Center, the issue is both human resources as well as financial resources as well. As you know, the equipment that they use needs to be maintained so that it is fit for purpose, and also they have to go through the capacitation that you're talking about, the training, which also does lead us back to the question of financial resources. So our approach really, and that is why last year we held the local government turnaround summit in the West Rand, because we realized that the municipalities really are struggling to keep their resources and to get more resources, because as you would understand, there's an influx of people in their spaces, and with the economy being what it is, it means then that even the sources of revenue that they have then become much more limited when the number of people they service are much more. So even the question of emergency services, obviously, if a municipality doesn't have resources to run its affairs properly, it then becomes very difficult for them to invest and maintain their fire stations, their fire equipment, and making sure that their people remain capacitated throughout. So it becomes very important then that we focus on the sustainability of the municipalities. And I'm quite pleased to say to you that even the audit outcomes that we are seeing, the preliminary ones, they are showing that there is some turnaround. As I said earlier, it is not an event, but it's something that we have to work together at and be patient with the process of turning around those municipalities.
Yeah, I mean, the patience aspect, I fully understand. It's just difficult, of course, when you have lost lives, etc. And one wonders whether there is sufficient political will to get all of this done, especially having heard from President Cyril Ramaphosa wanting to have the city of Joburg, for example, revitalized because it has crumbled. The Premier has put forward 13 priorities then within the city as well. While fire stations and fire departments may not necessarily be the significant part of that, but they occupy a very key and vital role in ensuring that our buildings are up to date, or at least safeguarded as much as possible in the case of a natural disaster, fire, etc. Is there sufficient political will to get this done?
I believe there is, and you spoke to something very important. The turnaround, the revitalization of the CBDs. We are looking at about 10 CBDs, and that is through the leadership of the Premier. You know, during a State of the Province address, and I'm happy that you've just quoted the 13 challenges that he has pointed out. One of them, and key amongst them, is the issue of turning around the CBDs. We are starting in the CBD of Johannesburg, and that is why I'm saying, to say there is political will to sort these problems out would be an understatement, because there's already work that is happening, and we are working together with the presidency to make sure that we roll out quite impactful activities and that are sustainable for the communities that live in the CBDs, the communities that work in the CBDs. As you know, the provincial government, the Gauteng provincial government, its seat is the CBD of Johannesburg. So we are starting there, and over the past months, I think since August, if I'm not mistaken, we have been consistently on the ground through cleanups, through the repairs of infrastructure, and also through a process that our department, the other department that I represent as well, the Department of Infrastructure Development, has done quite some work around just getting to understand who owns the buildings in the CBDs, in the CBD of Johannesburg more specifically, but also then also knowing what are we doing with government buildings in the CBD. So those plans are no longer just something we talk about, but there are teams that are on the ground every Tuesday. Every second Tuesday, we meet together with national as well as local government to make sure that we push those activities in the CBD of Johannesburg. Sure. And we use that as a prototype to go to the 9 other CBDs that we've identified so that then we can replicate what we are doing in the CBD of Johannesburg. But in the short, you're absolutely right that there has to be commitment from everyone who's involved. And we are quite excited that the private sector as well has come on board. We also have the religious sector as well coming on board and joining hands with us and saying, let's solve the problem together. Because the problems we have, Arabile, are quite big for one person or one sphere of government to resolve. It needs a joint effort.
Okay. Theo, appreciate the time this morning. Thank you so much for sharing, reflecting, and also, of course, honoring those who have bravely fought and continue to do so for us all as well, then, whether it be EMS or firefighting, of course, all part of that emergency medical personnel as well. Theo Nkonki, the spokesperson for Gauteng MEC there.